see. Melody, do we have a nice group on there? How many people do we have on?
We have about 9 people on right now. I'm
Okay.
letting in a couple more as we speak.
Cool. So that's a good amount to get started. As always, I always say the same thing. This is the first meeting for you all to give your input. This is not done by any means. I see my presenters over there. So please assign somebody to make sure that they're always looking in the chat in case there are questions in the chat, and questions will come up. And I hope you make sure to take down all of the different comments, and because they are going to have some comments and some input for you to take out in this area. I will let you introduce your folks. I will step back. If you need to share a screen, Melody will do that for you so that you can have that done. Appreciate you being on here, everyone, taking out time so that you can see and listen to this. Appreciate the presenters as well. So I'm going to go ahead because we're going to try to shut it down at 7. It's been pretty today, but you know we're supposed to have bad weather coming in. And looking outside now in my area, you know, back in the olden days, they said if the wind blows the tree leaves and the leaves are upside down, it's going to storm. Y'all probably have never heard that. Y'all too young to hear that. But anyway, that's what's happening outside now. So I'm going to turn it over to you all now.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you, Councilmember Lee. My name is Sean Scott, and this is Brandon Tomlin, and we are with Century Communities. And our engineer, Jeff Hines, is here with Catalyst Engineering Group, and our VP of Land, Trey Woodruff, is on the call as well. We appreciate the opportunity to meet with the community again. I believe this is our third meeting online for Summerbrook. And we had a site walk last week where we visited the site and walked it. And so we appreciate the opportunity to share this project, take feedback from the community, and try to incorporate that into our design here. I think we will kind of, Jeff, if you will lead us off and show kind of the outline of what we have gotten to based off of the feedback where we are. And we'll kind of talk through the program, and we'll be happy to take questions along the way. We'll be monitoring the chat section of this presentation here and be able to respond accordingly.
Yeah, Melanie.
Let me ask right quick, because I saw something in the chat from Tawana, and I have no idea what you're talking about. Tawana, can you take the politics out of the names? Kind of disrespectful not to use. I have no idea what you're talking about.
Someone has named themselves "You Love Trump" rather than using a legitimate name.
In what? The listing of the names? Okay, see, I can't see that. If that is there, please take that down and put up your name. Melanie, we don't need any, you know, we had somebody to come and put some things in the chat that were very inappropriate once before. And we had asked that everybody use their name so that we know what's going on. So if that is there, please take that out and put in your correct name. I can't see that. So Tawana, if you'll help me see if that's done. And Melanie, if that's not done, then we're going to ask those people to leave. I'm sorry? Has it been changed?
Their name has been changed, yeah.
Thank you so very much, whoever did that. Thank you. Thank you, Tawana. Okay, I'm sorry for the interruption.
All right, thank you, Jeff. If you'll
Melanie, I was going to say, Melanie, can you make me the presenter? Maybe I can.
I believe that you already have privileges.
All right, super. Yep. Okay, so I take it you can see my screen, everyone? Yes?
Yes, we can, Jeff.
All right, good deal. Let me go to presentation. So as Sean mentioned, we met at the site about a week ago from today and walked it and developed a revised plan accordingly to that, and you see that before you. So let me walk you through a little bit of the differences from what we heard at our last session with some members of this group. But one of the comments, I think mainly it was Twana, was to try and move this connecting roadway further south because of the homestead that is here on the adjoining property. Who knows what the plans are, but certainly there's a house being built a little bit further to the plan north from what shows up here that, you know, the roadway connection could be moved to avoid that. So we've done that. And as part of that, a large part of the discussion on site was to walk it both with the geotechnical consultant and the environmental consultant and look at these sinkholes. And I went back to the screen just so I can zoom in a little bit. But I personally was a little bit late, so I didn't walk it. I caught up at the end, but a whole group of folks did, probably about 12 folks total, walked the site and went back entirety through this 37 acres, looked at these different sinkholes, and the plan was adjusted. You can see the green circles here. When we moved the roadway, we adjusted the plan to try and miss each of those locations. So we heard a lot at the last meeting about, you know, groundwater recharge through the sinkholes. That was important to the group in terms of groundwater health and such. So now this valley that comes down from the ridge, and I put some blue arrows on here, you can kind of see where the water runs. There's two sinkholes down in the low area. There's a sinkhole here, and sinkhole here that we have revised the plan to preserve. And then if this area ever did overload from a standpoint as part of the new drainage design of taking stormwater from the streets and detaining it down here, we would have an overflow that would catch that area. But we would allow the runoff from the natural hillsides here to recharge into those sinkholes, which is what they're doing today. The plan otherwise maintains the connection to the south. Once again, it doesn't mean anything today, but for good planning, we want that interconnectivity. So not everybody, and the Planning Commission generally asks for that. Not everybody has to come out here and hop on the collector and arterial roads, you know, to go see a friend that's half a mile away. They can take some secondary streets. The front area of the site, we talked about in the field of these. Last meeting, we had revised the plan to, for the neighbors across the street, there was originally a townhome building here. We rotated all those away from the front and basically are maintaining 65 feet of preserved natural area. And I will tell you, after 50 to 60 feet, you effectively can't see a building on the other side of that. You know, height wise, if it's taller than the trees, but these are some pretty mature trees in through there. And then the low area here that the drainage comes under Hillsborough Road, we're preserving that area in the darker green color. And we talked about part of the commitment from Century Communities would be to remove invasive species from those areas, and then also from the stream corridor here as part of their work on site. We maintained the buffer that we've had all along the, what actually is the eastern side. North is to the left here, but along the top portion of the plan, we had that running consistently. We will leave that as natural vegetation there. And then the last thing is we revised our trail alignment here to make
Jeff,
sure.
Not to butt in.
Yeah,
So I'm just going to be monitoring all the chat as well. So if I cut you off, I apologize. But we had a couple of questions come in. The first being regarding the traffic circle update, asking if we had reached out to the homeowners affected by that. And so since you can kind of speak a little bit to that, we have reached out to them. I believe I have seen some of the names come through on the participants of this meeting, and I do see the Hickman family on there, and they live adjacent or right across the street from as well. So we have reached out. I believe the other family as well. I know Ms. Shannon Hickman, who's on the call as well, is kind of a representative somewhat for both families, and we made that contact to get the neighbors involved and see what their approach was for that. And I don't know if that's something that will be brought up later on, or we can address that now. And then Twana also talked about the traffic calming on internal streets. And then she said just trying to see if it's in there. I know that gray spot there in the townhome section is that, but to zoom in a little bit to see what that traffic calming device is.
Yeah, and that was in there last time, but it's basically a platform intersection where we are creating the ability for individuals to walk across. But if you've driven across kind of the raised intersection, it's where this part comes up about 4 inches with a transition. And if you drive across that at any high speed, you will bottom out a car. So that was actually in there last time. There was discussion about, rotating the public street and turning it. And that's one thing NDOT, as part of design standards, has criteria on. So the traffic calming we were targeting is this element internal, and then whatever, let me zoom out a little bit, whatever we are able to do out on Old Hickory in accordance with NDOT. In addition to your conversations, with the neighbors, there was also a meeting with NDOT about this. And NDOT, a couple things just to share with the group. NDOT basically said planning has jurisdiction over this north-south collector roadway. So even though that's kind of half truth, they work collectively with planning, but that is still on the planning documents, which is about one property over. There is a future plan collector roadway. Will it ever happen? No one knows. But NDOT said that was still there. And then NDOT wanted the traffic consultant, which is Kimley Horn on this development, to weigh in about any potential for a roundabout on what they classify as a collector roadway. And of course, Old Hickory becomes an arterial just down where it hits Whittemore Road. They do not allow many traffic calming measures on collector or arterial roadways. A roundabout is one of the ones that they allow, but they were hesitant and wanted the traffic consultant, and that call's been made, and I think that is scheduled to take place next week in terms of bringing the traffic consultant on board. But I think, Brandon, to weigh in a little bit further, is to put a roundabout here. We looked at that. It would require some additional right-of-way taking from the properties on the planned west side of Old Hickory Boulevard. And those individuals, I know one of them, as you said, is on the call, can share their desires or lack of for that. But that is kind of the update with NDOT is they are very hesitant to do much in the way of traffic calming on a collector roadway because their main goal is to move traffic. And, certainly I think the development group is willing to contribute, help, do whatever is allowed, but we have to work through those groups.
Excuse me, let me interrupt right quick. Melanie, if you're there, could you ask, I know we have the capability and we had talked about this before, and I don't know if Spanish speaking people are close to this or in this. Can you ask if anybody needs translation or anything that are on here and just let them know to speak up?
Si necesitan servicios en español, si pueden ponerlo en el mensaje. Déjame saber si necesitas traducción. I haven't received any messages, but I'll go ahead and type it in the chat one more time too.
Okay, thank you so very much. And thank you for letting me interrupt.
Hey, this is Shannon Hickman, and I'm speaking on behalf of the Hickmans across the street. And that talk about a roundabout, that is absolutely not going to work. There are two driveways right there, and it would completely block the driveways. It would block everybody into their house, and that just makes no sense at all. And so then I looked it up on the state website, and having driveways at a roundabout is not even allowed according to the state rules about building roundabouts. And so I think that just needs to be taken completely off the table.
Thank you, Shannon.
I'd also like to jump in and say that this is my first time to be able to attend a meeting. I've been dealing with my father's illness, and I'm at the hospital now, but I'm right next door to where the construction will be taking place at 13601. I'm across the road from the Hickmans, right next to the site. And of course, the sinkholes are an issue. I've lived on Oak Boulevard most of my life. And it has been something that has always been there and retained the water. The back of our property now, does get a lot more water than it did before the first of the construction. But I'm trying to figure out how this will affect my property. I'm a little confused by looking at the drawings. So forgive me for being ignorant about not having attended before. But if somebody could explain exactly, with my property being on the other side of the access road, going back to the old property, I just wanted to see how it will affect me, because I'm not quite understanding, I guess.
And Ms. Smith, I believe you are to the east of this property.
Yes, sir. Yes.
Okay.
This is the driveway that goes back to the property in behind.
Yes, I live next door to that access road. My home is actually the one beside of the access road, not the property in the back.
Right. Yeah, this is your house right here, if you can see that shape.
Okay, yes, okay.
Right there.
Okay. Okay, I understand. Okay. Yes.
Does that
I'm
make
right
that
across from the
orient
Hickman.
yourself a little better there?
Yeah, yes, it does, yeah.
They're talking. Okay,
So
go.
part of this all along from the beginning was to widen Old Hickory Boulevard to create both a left turn lane into the property, which would be striped as a center turn lane. And then there was an expressed desire to have a right turn lane or a decel lane for motorists headed eastbound on Old Hickory to come into the property. That was discussed with NDOT, and basically their reaction to that was the traffic engineer, the traffic study would have to be revised to recommend that, and they would review that. And Sean, I know you were in that meeting with Jack. Basically, NDOT's position is they don't want any more items in their right of way that, complicates things in any way, such as traffic calming, than what is the minimum that is indicated by the warrants. And for those of you that aren't familiar with traffic studies, is based on the number of homes they look at and have warrants that are met for left turn lanes, right turn lanes, traffic signals, etc. And there have to be so many conflicting movements to meet the criteria for that. So the center turn lane is a given in terms of widening Old Hickory. That is something that, certainly would be done. The right turn lane into the property is something we will propose, but NDOT will have final say on that.
Okay, so it would be like 15 feet of my yard that would come into my yard, that would go for the turning lane?
No, your yard is
Okay.
not, the existing right of way for your yard is right here. There's a 50-foot right of way on
Okay,
Old Hickory Boulevard, and we are not
okay,
touching anything on your yard.
okay, Oh, okay, that's better than I thought. Good.
May we interrupt, please?
Sure.
Yeah, my name is William Appleton. I live directly across from the proposed entrance, and I am adamantly opposed to the roundabout. The turn lane, I have no problem with it.
Keep going.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for that feedback.
We do not want a roundabout there. My husband is ill. We have to be able to get in and out of our property. We own a funeral home and we are working from home. I go morning, noon, and night, 7 days a week. I don't like the traffic on the road. The street racers have totally destroyed this road. But we are not selling any of our property. We cannot move. So please do not put a roundabout and take any of our property.
Okay, thank you for your feedback. We appreciate that.
Yeah, I'll speak up and say the same. You know, the home across the street belongs to my parents. Shannon is speaking up for us, and I really appreciate that. I'm not hearing really why you would want the traffic calming here in terms of figures. Everything seems to be just, oh, things are bad. I don't like it. And so why would a traffic calming location here be right for this road? What would it solve? I don't even know.
Okay, let me interrupt. We had a group of people that walked the area and looked at the area, and cars were going by. Sometimes we make suggestions about types of things we're looking at trying to slow down the traffic. It was not anything that said, yes, you've got to have a traffic comment. We have to have a circle there. After hearing the comments, and of course they make sense. I think that's good. But that's where this came from. Whenever we look at anything, we try to, the folks that were out there, and maybe some of the folks want to speak up. There was a nice little crowd that actually walked with them through where it's going to be to take a look at it. And so those were just some suggestions that we put out that we were hoping would stop some of the traffic or slow some of the traffic down. It was not something that says this is what has to be there. We did not have the comments about the driveway, and I don't even know if that was thought of. So that's why it's so good to have everybody on a meeting like this so that you can put that out.
Yeah, thank you, Councilmember Lee. I think you had brought up
I'll follow up and say that the reason y'all got notified was because we asked if y'all had been included and talked to, and the answer was no, no one had spoken to you, and we insisted on that happening because we recognize as a community that if this roadway gets improved and widened with nothing else changing like it did at Clover Glen just down the street, that's where people get to and they hit the accelerator and go even faster. And we've had 2 people killed right there, and we don't want more improved racetrack, aka Old Hickory Boulevard. We want something to be done that makes it safer for everyone. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. I agree with that wholeheartedly. However, Old Hickory Boulevard is a really long road, and I'm sure there are better areas where you could put a traffic calming situation in. It certainly makes no sense to have it right there in front of people's driveways.
Actually,
Shannon,
we're stretched between.
I think that's a moot point now because we're getting so much feedback on it and ways that we hadn't heard about it before. So that's what this meeting is for, to get that input and to hear what people are saying about it.
Absolutely. And to Council Members Lee's credit, when they asked us in the last meeting to consider a roundabout and we met out there, she had expressed that we really need to gain insight from the neighbors as to whether you would be interested in that. And that's what led us to reach out to you to see if that was a possibility. So we definitely appreciate your feedback, and we appreciate your attendance here tonight to offer that to us. I think, Jeff, going back, NDOT would need that right away to do that. We're hearing the feedback here. NDOT is in compliance. This or meets compliance with NDOT what we're proposing now, correct? And then
Right.
if they will allow us, because Councilmember Lee, you had brought that up that you would like to see if we could do a westbound turn in to the subdivision, and we're not opposed to that.
Yeah.
We just have to get approval from NDOT to include that in.
I think eastbound is what you meant there. Westbound,
I'm sorry, westbound, absolutely.
Yeah.
Left turn in, it would be a right turn in.
That's correct.
And Miss Elizabeth has had her hand up for a while. Elizabeth?
Oh, hello. Thank you. I was just going to say, I think the reason, the reason why everyone was talking about a traffic circle was basically because of the bigger issue of this part of town being built up and the fact that the roads are not made for an increased population. And so that's where people were trying to figure out like a way to make the roads safer, because even if you make the entrance safer, you're still going to have how many more cars on the road? And that's not just with this development, it's with all of the other developments around it. And so people are trying to think of like how to make the roadways less dangerous. And I think that that's like where the traffic circle came in. So that wasn't like a hard and fast, like that's what we're doing. It was just this is part of a bigger problem that we need some way to figure out. On that topic though, because these places are kind of out in the middle of the woods, out in the middle of nowhere, accessibility. I am disabled. Sometimes I can't walk. So what about people, like where's the nearest bus stop? What about people who don't have cars? Are we creating another food desert? Like how are people, if a person doesn't have a car, what about kids walking to school? You know, are we gonna have sidewalks? Are we gonna have sidewalks that join up with other developments to make it safe for people to walk? Because there is no sidewalk on those roads. It's literally just a lot of the times just a drop off. So it's impossible for people to bike. It's impossible for people to walk, for people to do really anything besides drive. And it's in the middle of the woods. So there's nothing there. There's nothing of convenience there. And like, I'm not like we need to have a bus stop. We need to have something there. But like, will a bus even be able to fit on those roads? Like it safely, you know, these are all big considerations that kind of need to be thought about. Thank you. That's my time.
And may I say something about right in front of this road? Speaking about there is a huge drop off. This is Anita. We live at 13610, right across from the proposed entrance. When it rains and storms really bad, which is a lot now, our property floods. There's a drainage ditch on our property. The road is sinking a little bit underneath. You can see that. NDOT, I do not think, knows about this problem. When it's raining and it's dark and it's flooded, there have been a lot of cars gone off the road in that lower, right on that proposed property. There's been a lot of wrecks right in front of our house. So NDOT needs to know that there is a weather issue right in front of our house too, so they can hopefully solve that problem for the traffic. Thank you.
Well, I will offer a little bit of an explanation there. Is as part of us widening the roadway, we will be required to reconstruct that part of Old Hickory Boulevard. And as far as the area where that drop off, and I've walked it too multiple times, that will be filled out, and we will be required to build a sidewalk across our frontage. And for Elizabeth, your question is, that's how the sidewalk network gets built out. I did notice that Meritage, when they built Clover Glen, there's not a sidewalk there. I guess they, were released from that. I don't know the circumstances there, but the current position is that you construct that sidewalk within the right of way of Old Hickory Boulevard. And then, whether there's a new guardrail there at the drop off, those are all things that'll be finalized during the design of the final documents.
Yeah, and as well to bring up the accessibility by other than vehicle, our sidewalk will not only access to the right of way and hopefully be continued through future development options, but we have sidewalks on both sides of the roads going through the entire community, as well as an extensive walking trail in the back to try to give other options through there as well.
Yeah, so we would build this portion of sidewalk as part of widening the road, and the majority of the widening is happening on our side, where there's not any right-of-way encumbrance to the folks that live on the opposite side of Old Hickory. We are having to give property here and build out that widening to our side. So right where that low area is, part of our design plans would require that we address that from a safety standpoint.
Yeah. Thank you for the feedback.
And then other questions that have kind of came in as well, we were on the traffic calming, was the topic of invasives. Before we get to that, I know Elizabeth on the last call, we had kind of a misspeak about the eastern red cedars. And so we know those are not considered the invasive and that they're unique to it. So those would not obviously be targeted as an invasive species as we go through there.
Well, I think it was about those being cedar glades was what I heard during that last call, but that's not the designation here with what we have. So.
Yep. Okay. Jeff, why don't you give a highlight? Because I do see a lot of new people on here. If you can just give a highlight of the community real quick.
Yeah, so let me zoom out a little bit. So this is 37 acres as a property. We are basically preserving 41% of it in terms of, let me zoom all the way out so you can see this. We have 15 and some odd acres, 15 and a quarter acres that we are preserving. This is the high ridge line that runs through here, steeper slopes, preservation of these areas, preservation back here with the trail that walks through the edge of those woods, preserving along the streams as well. So 41% of the site is being kept in either open space or preserved natural area. It is 137, 69 single family lots, 67 townhomes here that are all alley loaded. We have an elevation. I didn't open the booklet, but I can do that to show you what those look like. But basically you just have a front porch of the townhome structures facing out toward the street, toward the public area, a little pocket park here that will be shared by the neighborhood, and basically driving by, it breaks up and introduces a nice little green space, with some fire pits, some areas for folks to gather. And then in the back, we have the amenity, as Sean mentioned, of the walking trails. The overall proposed density is 3.7 units to the acre, which is pretty low by the standards of what some others have been developing in through here. That's part of, in this given case, it works in preserving a large part of the natural area back here. That makes sense. You just stay out of slopes that are 20% and above, and where those sinkholes are located. So that's kind of a quick overview, Sean. I don't know if you want to add anything to that, or if you want.
Yeah, absolutely.
The page.
I think there was a couple of questions in there. We are the developer and the builder, and we are a build for sale developer. We do not build for rent. And so the townhomes will be owned. And whether a homeowner decides at some point in their future to rent that out later, that is up to them. But we do not build for rent. We build for sale. We're trying to offer a community for people to live in and enjoy. But we are not a build for rent community. The townhomes will be a 1,760 square foot unit, a 3-bedroom, 2-bath unit. The single families will range from 1,900 to 2,700 square feet, and they will be 3 to 4 bedroom on average, with an office and 2.5 bedroom or 2.5 baths as well. I know before there was mention that about 5 bedrooms. Some of our products could convert that office into a 5th bedroom, but most people, we find, leave that as an office space or an extra sitting room, not as a bedroom. Typically, it's a 3 to 4 bedroom average.
And I just called up our SP booklet. So for those of you that are new, the proposed zoning here is a specific plan, otherwise referred to and abbreviated as an SP, which means as part of the rezoning, you attach standards for the architecture, allowable heights, allowable building materials. The plan you see gets attached to the zoning. So basically it's a plan certain, we're showing you what is going to be developed, unlike straight zoning where you have zoning in place, but there's not that extra level of control in terms of what gets shown is what has to be built. So with this being an SP, so this is the townhome structure. These are elevations of the new single family product line that Century Communities is working on. So you can start to see kind of the style of, a little bit farmstead with materials, cementitious siding, some masonry wrapping different elements of the buildings. So that's
Jeff, can you show that single lot layout that we pulled up on the single family? I know we talked about parking as a concern. So we had Catalyst draw us a typical single family home, and you can see that because we have a pronounced porch on our single family units, our garage will be recessed back, and that will give you about 26 foot of depth from the garage door to the property line. And you still have the additional right-of-way space till you get the sidewalk. I know there was concern about larger trucks being able to be parked or vehicles parked in the driveway without blocking the sidewalk. So we have a 2-car garage and plenty of space for 2 cars to park outside of the garage as well, and still have room so that you're not encumbering the sidewalk, which was a concern of the community.
Antoine, I see your hand up as well.
Yes, I have a few questions. First off, I want to say thank you to y'all for walking that with us the other day. I still have several concerns, and Anita brought up one of them. We walked down that drainage area from Old Hickory Boulevard, and it terminates in a depression that doesn't have an outlet. And I told the guy last week, and she's told you tonight, that water backs up onto Old Hickory Boulevard. Metro has been made aware of that. I've reported it a couple of times in the past when I've observed it. That water has nowhere to go. There's no outlet to that drainage. And granted, it would have to rise another 18 inches or better to go into Mr. Lewis's property, but if it has no outlet, it's going to go somewhere. And I feel like y'all don't still appreciate how much water moves through Cane Ridge. Most developers don't. And related to that, in the back, since we met last week, I've been contacted by one of the longtime residents here who grew up here, who has gone into the caves that I was telling y'all about, and she said there are rooms back there big enough to drive a bus into, which is again an illustration of how much water is moving through this property and other nearby properties, it still feels like to me that the 3 or 4 sinkholes that you are talking about impacting are too, you're too close to them. I just don't think people appreciate how much water moves through our property out here and how much is going underground. And then the other thing is I just want to point out, again, you've brought up the number of bedrooms, and if you tally up that number of bedrooms and assume that there is a vehicle for 80% of the bedrooms, that's a lot of additional people trying to come in and out to a stretch of roadway that you're essentially talking about improving, just like Clover Glen is. And I understand Shannon or Melanie's question about why this stretch of Old Hickory, but it is the only 1 mile straight stretch of Old Hickory where anything could be improved to make it safer. And what we know from Metro is that if nothing else is done, their eventual plan is for traffic lights. And we don't want to be a community of internal traffic lights because commercial follows them. So I'd like to hear other options other than a traffic circle for slowing down traffic on Old Hickory Boulevard. I'd like to hear about the water factor both in the front and the back. And in the back, I'd like to hear about the proximity to the sinkholes and whether y'all are willing to discuss taking away those back units. Thank you.
I think I'd like to second that with Twana as far as saying, having grown up in the area, if you did not grow up in the area, you don't understand how many caves and how much water runs through that area. I mean, there is a lot of rock underneath our land there, and we have experienced it over and over and over. I grew up on that road, and we have had sinkholes that have developed over the years. There have been caves there for years and years, and I'm not saying that it's not fixable. I'm just saying that time and time again, it has thought to have been fixed, and then they have opened back up again. So I'm not saying it's not doable. I'm just saying that from a perspective of somebody that's been around the land for 50 some odd years, that it is more water, I think, than most people appreciate or can understand unless you've lived there for a long time. And so I think that is something that we have to take in consideration. And also, I'd just like to say that just like a lot of the roads in Nashville, our road was not made to take on as much traffic and as many people using it as what it takes on now. We have the same road that was widened years ago for more traffic, and it has been years and years since it was widened for that traffic. And I grew up on this road, and it was never intended for it to have, you know, that many people using it. And now, you know, daily it takes me a few minutes to get out of my driveway, and not to mention if it's during rush hour traffic. So I think it's all things that, you know, have to be considered. I appreciate the fact that, you know, you're forthcoming with all of the information and the zoning and everything. I do appreciate all of that. But at the same time, you know, there's a lot to consider, you know, when you think about the water and I know we have a lot of runoff as well, and there is a lot of water in the area.
Jeff, if I could ask a question, I know, and I want to say, please correct me if I say something wrong here, but this is just a concept plan based off of the contours and what we feel like is respectful of the community. The preserved natural area, Jeff, if as we develop this and you start running hydrology, if there needs to be an amendment there to address some of those concerns, we will do that in the engineering of the CDs, correct?
Yeah, there's a final SP down the road that goes into all the agencies. But I was curious, I guess, yeah, I heard 2 comments from Twana mainly about the front area and road and water ponding out on Old Hickory. And then about the rear area, Twana, were you talking about it ponding on the north side of Old Hickory? Or this is the area that kind of ponds it currently, and there is an outfall, but it does have to build up to the outfall.
Both sides. It backs up on the south side and then also has water on the north side where it's coming from the Hickman's property there and actually runs across Old Hickory Boulevard.
Right.
Developers make this mistake over and over and over because the water reports that exist with Metro just don't accurately reflect what we've been experiencing, especially the last 10 years. There is just an amazing amount of water that moves through this area. And yeah, it backs up and fills up. And that's why I kept bringing that up the other day is let's go look at this. It's got, it's visible from the road sometimes. And again, there's no outlet to that. And then I also just want to make one more point. Y'all just now made a point of saying that you sell for sale products, not rental products, but you specifically did not exclude corporate ownership, nor did you say it has to be owner occupied. And if it is allowed to be purchased by corporations or people not living there, it is the same thing as rental property.
I responded to you, Tawana. We had talked about this. We had also talked with them about, like, you have a single person wanting to buy like 5 or 6 homes. So none of that is what they were doing in here. They understood the point about buying to own one person, if that makes sense.
That's correct.
And those would be handled with our HOA documents as we set up the HOA and the governing membership for that.
Yeah, I thought we had already addressed that. I didn't address it here, but we had already discussed that we would have in our covenants a restriction on that. So.
And as far as water on the Hickman side of Old Hickory, as part of rebuilding this road, the drainage system beneath there that outfalls into this area here would be resized. I can't even tell you what runs under that road now, but it's probably quite old and not in the best condition. So that would be part of re-widening and engineering this section of Old Hickory. So
I would guess.
Excuse me.
I would guess that there's nothing underneath there because there's ditches on both sides of the road. Yeah.
But there needs to be. I mean, you don't allow water to run over a road in terms of current design because of hydroplaning and everything else. So
yes, sir. And I'm just saying that it's been there long before we had that kind of infrastructure as standard in Davidson County.
Right.
Yeah.
And may I chime in? We are on the north side of Old Hickory Boulevard, and as I was talking about next to the Hickmans, and as I was speaking about our drainage ditch, the water comes from back behind. It's David Shinkle's property now, but the Adcocks live there. It's right next door to us. But it comes from the back of their property, and it comes down in between, through our drainage ditch. And so when we had the May 2010 flood, right after we bought this property in 2007, when the flood hit, we had a huge sinkhole at the back of our property that we had to correct. We also had our basement wall caved in a little bit. We had to dig up the side, the end of our house next to the Hickmans. We had to dig everything up to reinforce our basement, our foundation. The water backs up on our property all the time. It's not just one time a year. our driveway gets flooded. It almost came up to our basement the last time it rained. We have pictures on our phone. If there's an email that we need to send photos to prove our point, give me an email.
Yeah, we can do, I think we're not disagreeing at all. I think the answer is this rebuilding of Old Hickory out here would remedy that issue if it drains across the roadway right now. But
it's also underground. See, this our back property, all of that was underground. It just opened up. We have when we dug up our foundation, we discovered we have huge rock boulders around. The contractor could not waterproof from both corners, the north and the south, because of these boulders. So we're kind of trapped with this house. So there needs to be some sort of an outlet for all of this water to go to, because it's going to keep flooding.
Yeah, there is an outlet. What's not in place, it sounds like right now, is a drain pipe beneath Old Hickory Boulevard. And that's why it backs up on your side.
Well, I would like for somebody to come look at our drainage ditch. I don't know who that person is, but come look at it and explain to me what needs to happen. But don't come in the mornings because I work all night.
Okay. Well, this would help remedy your issue. That's the best way to say it. Yeah.
The only way to deal with water is to give it a place to go.
Yeah,
you got to give it a
happy
place
to come out there and take a look at that.
Yeah.
Again,
topographically, it has a place to go. This is way lower, if you see my cursor, than your property up here. It's just how it gets there is currently impeded by the existing Old Hickory Boulevard and then this natural area down here. So.
Yes, and Ms. Appleton, this is Sean with Century. We'd be happy to come out there and take a look at it with you. I think to Mr. Hines's point with our engineering firm is, as we design this, we'll account for those items and include solutions to avoid that from further happening. We're just not at that point yet. But thank you for making that a point that we need to make sure we consider and bring up.
What else? And then I guess Tawana had a comment about drainage in the rear. So we have removed lots where all of the water flow occurs. You can see by the topography, and I put blue lines in kind of the center line of that comes down into this area right here where there are two sinkholes. We're out of that sinkhole. We're off of that sinkhole. So I think we've done pretty good job of putting common open space and preserving those areas. I think
as we walk that site too, Tawana, we identified, and that's what we looked at, the sinkholes, the karst features there that were the worst. I didn't see where a bus could fit through what we looked at. That's not to say there's not capacity underneath there.
That's not what I said. The lady has been in the caves beneath this to which the sinkholes are draining, and it illustrates, and she talked about it being a wet cave, so it illustrates again the movement of water. And if you're putting a road right over top of a sinkhole, you're adding impermeable surface through the roadway and through all these rooftops. That means there's going to be more water moving in places it wasn't before. And it seems like these three right here are too close to the lots. So my question was, can you leave off those back ones and just not even go close to it? Because it feels like we're planning for a future problem in having them that close.
Well, I thought that when we had walked, we had our experts out there, And we talked about how we would mitigate the lesser of the car's features to improve those. And we were in agreement on that. I don't understand. There are some that we definitely have shifted to stay away from, but there are mitigation options that we express that we would be willing to do on a few of the ones that are in the way there.
Yeah, and the water from these homes, Tawana, will not be allowed to go to those sinkholes. The new runoff will be collected out here in a drainage system and taken down to the stormwater detention basins. So the only thing going to these sinkholes is going to be the natural area that drains there now.
So you all have been invited to come and look at some of those, and you said you would. I sure do appreciate that, because a lot of times when you see studies and things like that, they may overlook some things, and it's nothing like going and looking and seeing it for yourself. So this area does have a lot of issues with water. Actually our whole area, like in that area, with water and different wrecks because of the water kind of just staying on the roads and things like that. So I'm glad that you all are looking at that, and we'll look at ways to help with that drainage. I cut in because I'd like to see if I have anybody else. We only have about 4 minutes before 7. As with many of my meetings, this is not the final cast. This is one to get feedback from what's going on. So I want to see if anyone else who has not had a chance to talk has some comments or would like to say something, or any of the people that actually did the walking with you guys, if they want to say something and say how that experience was as well.
Hi there. My name is Julie Craig. I am also one of the Hickman's children, and I just make sure and have it on the record that that whole roundabout situation would not be a great idea for right there. So that's all I had to offer. I didn't even know this neighborhood was happening until yesterday. So I'm getting caught up.
Well, Julie, do you see where you're in District 33, right?
Our mom is.
Yes.
Our mother is.
My brother is Michael. My sister-in-law is Shannon, that you guys have been speaking with, and
okay.
We grew up on that Hickman property.
Yeah. I just want to make sure. I know that a email was put over in the side where you could say you wanted to be on the mailing list, because I have a District 33 mailing list, and you get, if you're on that, anytime we have any type of meetings, you get notification of that. Okay. If questions come on that the developers have to answer and get back to folks, I send that to everybody in the 33 database. And anybody that is in 33 is welcome to come to any of these, attend any of these meetings, even if they're not like right beside the property, because the traffic impact and all of that is going to impact everybody that's in the district. So not just for you, but anybody that is in the district that did not get, maybe somebody told you about this meeting, or this is your first one or whatever, look back over in the side and find the email. We can't just automatically put you in. You have to let us know it's something legally about scams and stuff. You just have to send an email saying, this is who I am. This is my address. I'm in 33. I want to be on your email thing. And anybody can do that.
Okay, that'd be great. I will definitely do that. Thank you.
Great. Anybody else? Yes.
Yeah, thank you for what you're doing. And it sounds like the roundabout is off the table, and I certainly hope so.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. So people can stop commenting on the roundabout.
The traffic does need to slow down, though. So if there is a more creative way, that is something that needs to happen. I can vouch for that. We can't even get the mail.
Yeah. So
And they said that they would look at some other things, but I'm also going to put it back on you all because people who actually experience that may know some of the things that are needed as well. So please send something in if you have some things. It won't mean it will get in there, but it'll mean that it'll be considered. If you all, because you all are smarter than one person, if you have some ideas as well.
It sounds to me like they're not allowing corporations to buy blocks of houses. And it sounds like the company is doing pretty good about listening concerns about water and the sinkholes, and they've got engineers to address those issues. And they're explaining how rebuilding Old Hickory Boulevard will eliminate water and sinkhole problems with the drain pipe under the road, if I heard that guy right. And it sounds like they removed lots to accommodate draining in the back. And I'm just kind of going over my notes that I took during this meeting. They're addressing sinkholes when they walk the property with people, and they're leaving sinkhole areas as natural areas. So, I mean, this sounds pretty good to me as far as the neighborhood goes.
I appreciate those comments. Positive comments aren't always what we hear a lot of. So I do appreciate that. But just know too, the stuff is still open for those creativities to kind of move around in people's heads. If you all have something else that you think will work that we haven't or that they haven't considered. Anybody else?
No, I do appreciate the ability to give you feedback, and I too I agree with Shannon completely that I think it sounds like a pretty good plan to start, and you know, at this point there's going to be a lot of soil and water studies done to make sure that the impact is what it needs to be, and so it sounds like we're starting off on the right foot. I have a lot of faith in our technical community to do the right things when they have decisions.
I appreciate so much those comments as well. And I do appreciate the developers, I guess, desire to listen to and make sure that they're doing what they can to put into place some things that the community is offering them and giving to them. So I do appreciate all of that. If you all did not get the email, I hope you will contact our office. Ms. Melanie is the person, I think she has hers in there to send it to, so that you will be on the very next meeting when they advise things and talk about things that are important, not to have any meetings in July. So if you all need to get on the calendar, I'd go ahead and get on there now, even if you're not going to meet until like the end of June or the beginning of August or something, so that you'll have space. And hopefully that July will give you all a rest some for those people that are like, why is she always having a meeting on the Thursday? Because I want to bring stuff to y'all. But I'll try to give you all a rest in July.
Councilwoman Lee, can I speak for 2 seconds? My name is Trey Woodruff. I'm the VP of Land over Century Communities. As we started off this meeting, this is our third public meeting with your community members, plus an additional fourth meeting where we've done the walks. We've been working on this project for almost a year now, just to be able to present it to the SP, to council, just to continue to move forward on this project. Are you willing to let us continue to work this through the CD process? We've offered to meet with the community during that process. We would really like to continue moving this project forward versus potentially waiting another 3 months just to submit the SP. Are you okay if we continue to work with the city and your great community and move this project forward into the construction document process or through the final SP or the initial SP process?
I don't know if some things will have to change on that the community brought up today, or any that they may have in the future. So I don't know how much you want to go ahead and put in place now. Now, I am open to you all working. I am not going to sign anything until we at a spot where I think it's good. I think we are almost there now from hearing some of the comments from the community, but I don't think it is a done thing. So I'm hoping that you all will continue to work with the community, continue to get some of their comments and work that through. But other than that,
my only concern there, Councilwoman, is a lot of the in-depth research and things that would take to answer any further questions would be through that CD process. And so we've corrected everything that was mentioned on this call today. We have addressed, we have moved the roads. We have, even from the walk, we talked about how these CARS features will be remediated. It just feels like we're passing the buck here when there was no new issues brought up today that we have not addressed already.
well, I think that I heard some things that still needed addressing or that they were going to look at. Some of them were the caves and things like that. I think the conversation before you came on sounded like it was very promising and almost like, okay, well, we're ready to go. I do not, or rather, I will not, if you want to go ahead through and get some of the stuff together, that's fine. But I'm not going to go ahead and sign anything now because I don't feel that we're actually at that point. I think that we are just about at that point.
Wonderful. That's fine. As long as you're seeing progress and we're continuing to meet your expectations, of course, that is our top priority. I just want to make sure that we continue to move the project forward. Like I said, it's now been almost 6 months this year of us continuously meeting with the community, and that's not going to stop. So I just appreciate your support and hope that we can continue to move this project forward.
Thank you for your comments.
And we did, as part of that site walk with Twana and the King Ridge Association, some of their members.
And other community members in there as well.
Yep. And we spoke about continuing to have a meeting, as part of the process, but I think they were open to continuing the planning commission cycle just to be tracking some of those dates, which I know there's 3 readings at council even after planning commission. So, and things can be amended all the way through that process. So
yes, it's a little harder, but you're right. They can be, but yeah. I usually like to get it where I'm feeling pretty good about it before I even sign the first thing. But like I was saying, from the conversations from you all and the community, I was feeling good and that was moving in a good direction. So.
Sounds good.
All right. We are about done. Did anybody else have something that they really needed to say?
What does CD stand for?
Construction documents.
Thank you.
All right. We're only about 8 minutes over. Rain hadn't started yet. It is kind of blowing out there though, but you all could still go ahead and enjoy your dinners and some of the afternoon left. And thank you all so very much for being on. Melanie, thank you so very much for doing all of this for us. And again, congratulations to you.